It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? No. A strong deodorant? Yes. A six-pack of abs? Nope. Six-pack of beer? Yes. Get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol 21 plus and in select cities. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
New year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Let's do the 60-second savings challenge. Step 1. Download Rocket Money. Step 2. Link your accounts and see every subscription you're paying for. Tap one you don't use and cancel it. That's money back every month. Step 3. Create a financial goal. $50 every paycheck. Or let the app automatically move small amounts of cash when you can afford it. In a week, you'll forget you set it up. In a month, you'll see real dollars piling up. In a year, you'll be shocked at how much money you've saved. Bonus challenge. Upload an internet or phone bill and let Rocket Money try to lower it. You only pay if they find you savings. On average, Rocket Money members can save up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Users love the app with over 186,000 5-star ratings. Make saving money the resolution you actually keep. Start the 60-second savings challenge at rocketmoney.com/cancel. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel. rocketmoney.com/cancel.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game, with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire, who is trying his hardest not to look chipper. So come on, let's get it over with. Philly boots, get it off your chest. Go on.
I did Wordle in 2 this morning.
Did you really?
I'm absolutely made up.
Yeah, you've had a field day on social media all weekend. So
I have to field day on social media. Yes.
First of all, congratulations to Macclesfield.
Yes.
They deserved it. Congratulations to those Palace fans who clapped them off the pit. I mean, those Macclesfield fans have had a rough time recently, especially very recently with the tragic event. So I'm not going to say I don't begrudge it, Kieran. I do begrudge it a little bit, but no, good luck to them. Fair point. It's the young Palace fans I feel sorry for. Those of us over 40 just went, well, of course that happened. I went to
that's sort of the attitude I had from my mates.
I mistakenly went to an exhibition on Thursday night. I shouldn't have gone to it. My physio team said only go if it's got proper access and it's not raining. Cut to it's in a tunnel underneath Crystal Palace Park, 60 steps down in a monsoon and no seats. And yeah, it was a lovely exhibition, and then they're all making speeches at the end about starting the FA Cup journey again and getting to Wembley, and we're all at the back going, well, we need to beat Macclesfield first. It's all making history, isn't it? Some
exactly.
History's good, some history's bad.
It's still history.
It's still history, and I'm told, I've not yet researched this, I'm told that the only time it's ever happened before that a non-league club has beaten the FA Cup holders in the following year, we were the non-league club.
Oh, right.
In 1901, apparently, we beat Newcastle. I shall look up some headlines. I don't know how gleeful Palace fans would have celebrated that back in the day, probably with pigeon messages and stern letters to the Croydon Advertiser. But no, these it's humiliating, it's annoying, but these things happen, and somebody's joy is always going to come at the expense of somebody's pain. Speaking of which, what I will say, there are some people out there in social media land who really need to hope their team wins the FA Cup, because I have a long memory. And if their team doesn't win the FA Cup, they are in for a world of pain. Trust me. In fact, I think I worked out the only club who I haven't had stick from has been Man City, apart from one Man City fan I bumped into on Saturday night at a party. So I really want Man City to win the FA Cup, and I'm just going to tick off every single club as they get knocked out. And they will be getting some very stern, hilarious social media messages, basically. also a sense of perspective required here, Kieran, as well. We're mid-table in the Premier League. We're still in Europe.
Exactly.
The fact is just, I've spent the whole weekend talking to Palace fans going, what do you mean he's the worst manager ever? We just won the FA Cup. We got the charity. Who are we sacking him? Who are we getting in? Why are we sacking him? I blame that kit. Also, I blame whoever it is, the FA and Mitre for introducing the winner's ball.
That gave me another opportunity, didn't it?
I know. I saw all your opportunities. Don't worry, Kieran. I decided not to heart them in the hope that you would notice. That was my way of sulking. It's questions day, Kieran. I'm sure we'll have all sorts of fun up until the summer with what happened at Macclesfield. I'm sure it will come up every now and again. I'm sure when the 117 Man City cases come up, I think you'll find there's 116 places between Palace and Macclesfield, not 117, but I decided to let that pass as well. But we've got some questions today, Kieran, which on the face of it are led me to believe I might still have some residual morphine in my system. Because one or two of them, I did a proper double take. But actually, so I think they might turn out to be good questions. But so let's crack on. Marcus Glover has our first question. If a player is sold by a club, but the club has a sell-on fee, what happens if the player re-signs for that amount? I assume the sell-on component is deducted from the actual price paid.
Yes, if you sell a player for 10 million and that player is resold for 10 million, if you take a look at the vast majority of sell-on fees, the sell-on only applies if the player goes for a profit. So that's why there's always a vested interest. I mean, you've just been talking about Manchester City, Semenyo going from Bournemouth to Manchester City. I believe that Bristol City might have a 15 or a 20% sell-on clause for that. So, Bournemouth have probably made around about 50 million of profit. So Bristol City could be picking up to £10 million from this. So it does show the complex nature of transfer arrangements. And I would encourage all clubs to do two things. First of all, when they are drafting the contracts, to go through them very, very carefully, because if you don't, you can get stung. And we always use the Leeds United transfer, the most expensive one, Jean-Kevin Augustine, which cost the club £1 million a minute in terms of both wages and transfer fees.
Wow.
For the time in which he was there. Again, could you have dealt with that? And this is why whilst we make we make suitable comments about the sports lawyers, they are very successful. This shows why it's really important that you have people who can do their job. And the second thing, and this is something which really surprised me. I was in Lisbon a couple of months ago doing some sort of presentation. And one of the people there is involved in an organisation and it checks to see whether you've claimed your sell-on fees, because it turns out that there are quite a few clubs that do sell players, and then the club secretary or the financial officer or whoever it is, if that person moves on, and then they've written a little post-it note, if we go and sell Joe Blogs, we must remember to go and put in for a claim. It's the lack of professionalism within professional football is absolutely staggering. So this organisation says, we will look after your contracts for you to make sure that you do pick up the sell-on fees. And you do. And remember, sell-on fees can be quite complicated because it's not just if that player is sold again. Many of them have clauses in which if a certain player plays 10 matches, 20 matches, 40 matches. And remember, we were discussing the Harvey Elliott situation recently in the sense that Aston Villa have decided, well, we don't really think that he's suitable for us. And at the same time, we're not going to give him match experience because we don't want to have to go and commit ourselves to making an additional payment to Liverpool. So the nuance, I think, in sell-on fees and add-ons is really complex. And that's why we now have organisations which are going to act as sort of the professional advisors to clubs, not just when the contract is initially drafted, but also during the subsequent period after the player is signed.
So can we expect those organisations to be advertising during countdown? Did you buy a player between 1999 and 2? If so, you may be eligible for. I'm just before we move on, Kieran,
Add-ons are us.
I just realised I made a rookie area. I didn't scan the questions entirely for Macclesfield potential, but I think we're doing all right. I think there's a couple where you might be able to get a Macclesfield dig in. I've already made it plain to produce a guy that I don't want any news stories in the news pod that go anywhere near the Northwest or begin with M or talk about old bands. I'm sure you've seen the Mac Lads many times.
I have seen the Mac Lads once.
Okay.
I think it's one of those things. That's probably
I've
never is not enough, and twice is too much.
Yeah.
They are reflective of a certain area of Macclesfield.
Yeah. Well, as Samuel Johnson said, it's worth seeing, but not worth going to see. Basically, I think it was him. He gets credited most. No, I've saw the Mac Lads once, and I'm with you. I think I've done that. I've ticked that off. I suspect that if I go and see him again in 3 years' time, they won't have a lot of new material.
No,
and if they do, so I do great. I mean, as a concept, I applaud.
Yes,
wholly applaud the Mac Lads. Norris Lawton has our next question, and it's a good question, but basically it's a way of let me ask the question first. So Norris Lawton says stock markets crash from time to time, and the experts can tell us why it happened after the event. It seemed to fail to predict it prior to the crash. Bull markets, where your gut feeling tells you the market is just too good, never last. Is the current bull market in our game heading for a crash soon? In other words, is football overvalued right now? Essentially, this is a good question from Norris, Kieran, but it's a specific way of asking a question that football fans have been asking since the start of the Premier League. Is this bubble about to burst? And it seems as each season goes by, it doesn't. It just gets bigger.
That's right. For people not familiar with the terminology, a bull market refers to a positive outlook as far as most investors are concerned. And therefore, in a bull market, you feel that prices are going to increase. So therefore, if you think they're going to increase, you buy now with the aim of selling when that price increase comes. The alternative to that is what's referred to as a bear market. A bear with a sore head, I always remember it as. And a bear market is where the overriding sentiment within the market is one which is negative. So what you might do is you quite often sell shares. It's called short selling. You sell shares that you don't have with the view of buying them in a couple of days at a lower price and then giving them to the person that you've just sold them to, because there's sometimes a bit of lag within markets. So just going back to Norris's question, I think there has been a few question marks over the value of football clubs, because we saw Newcastle United being sold in 2021 for 2 times their revenue. Chelsea were then sold a year later for 5 times their revenue. Manchester United was sold a minority stake to Jim Ratcliffe for 7 times the revenue. Again, well, this is clearly very aggressive pricing operating within football, and we've seen certainly it used to be, certainly when I was advising people, I'd normally be looking at around 1.5 to 2 times revenue, perhaps 2.5 if you've got a good brand. But the market sentiment has shifted. At the same time, we are not seeing clubs returning to profitability. So the fundamentals, Norris, I'm inclined to agree with you. So that's the what. And I, as I always try to say to people when I'm teaching, it's not the what. I can pick up the what from the internet. Is that people will pay you as an advisor or for your knowledge. People pay for the whys. So why are we in this particular environment? There is an awful lot of money around at present. A lot of that money is coming from the United States, because I've said this in many occasions, the United States economy has outperformed Europe. It's outperformed Asia quite considerably. and that money, and this is not a political one. That money is being kept in the hands of very few people. So the vast majority of Americans are no better off, but at the very elite end, there's been, and therefore people have now got spare cash. There was a really good article, I think it was in the FT last week, which was looking at valuations of sports clubs, and it said that compared to the NFL and the NBA, football's falling a long way behind. So yes, there has been growth in football, but the growth in American franchise sports has been at a far faster rate. The reason for that is sort of twofold. First of all, rich American billionaires like the idea of being able to own an NFL or an NBA franchise because it's their sport, it's their country. Yes, they've still got an interest in football, and football's a lot cheaper. But secondly, what investors like is risk minimization. And what are the risks in football? The risk is relegation. The risk is not qualifying for the Champions League if you're one of the elite clubs, and so on. And if you look at American sports, they are all completely de-risked. There is no relegation. You've got a fantastic television deal network because American sports are all geared towards the interests of broadcasters rather than consumers and folks, fans, however you want to describe them. And as a result of that, what we're now seeing is that football, yes, the values are increasing, but if football's increasing by 30% a year, then American sports are increasing by 70% a year in terms of market and so on. So I don't think it's overvalued. I think we might reach a plateau as far as valuation metrics are concerned. In the relatively short term, and I suspect that plateau will probably carry on until somebody works out a way of doing one of two things. First of all, is there a way of squeezing more money in terms of revenue? And we've discussed this in terms of the use of perhaps augmented reality, virtual reality, some form of alternative broadcasting service, or is there a way of reducing the costs within the football? And as we all know, the major costs are player related. I think that's very difficult because it's a global sport, and if we have a wage cap in the Premier League, people will go to La Liga and Bundesliga and so on.
Hark at you with your commie agitating. So much money concentrated in the hands of so few people. You're not getting a visa next time you go to America, are you? That's all.
For a number of reasons. Yes.
Yeah. Also, talking of Man United, I was quite pleased to see some Man United fans take exception to your description of plucky Brighton. Your implication that Brighton and Grimsby were roughly on the same level, beating Man United. Because what you forget is that some Man United fans listen to our pod. So when they're pointing out the amount of money Brighton's actually had invested in their playing squad in the last couple of seasons, they didn't quite agree with your perspective there. But you're quite right. I imagine with Grimsby and Brighton, I don't think the seagull is going to be the most popular bird in Manchester. This next question, Kieran, comes from Ollie Griffin, and my eyes always light up when a question starts. Apologies for the stupidity of this question. Because normally I can't wait to read any question that starts with, this is a stupid question. And on the face of it, Kieran, it is. But do you know what? It's one of those questions, the more I read it, the more I think Ollie may have a point. So Ollie says, apologies for the stupidity of the question, but after the repetitiveness of hearing about stadium expansions for the day trippers, how long do you think before clubs start selling half game tickets with hospitality packages where they can rotate people at half time? So in one half you're eating the prawn sandwiches, and in the alternate half you're actually watching the game. Apologies, but it's food for thought. Ollie nearly spoiled it with that terrible pun at the end, but do you know, I laughed out loud when I read this question, but I've been doing some research on a separate project recently, and when you look at League Two clubs and National League clubs, I mean, their hospitality packages are not as glamorous as other clubs, but they do exist, and they sell out. They all sell out every match, and quite a lot of them, clubs doing research indicate that these are fans who don't. A lot of them, they don't really want to go, but they've been talked into it by another member of the family, and they'd rather actually be watching the game, but they enjoy the experience such as it is. How, in a strange sort of way, maybe the demand is going to be so strong at Premier League teams for this sort of hospitality packages that they will have to split it up. Obviously, the answer is going to be no, but at the same time, I'm quite intrigued to hear how you get to that conclusion.
I think this is a fascinating issue that Ollie has raised, and yes, I know he's got his tongue in his cheek here, but this is something that clubs can do, and we've had this discussion before. That Manchester United have got 1.1 billion followers, according to their own press release, but they can only get 75,000 people into Old Trafford. Can we give them more of an Old Trafford experience? Well, yes, you can. Why not have some of these three-dimensional screens elsewhere? And then you could have you pay 100 quid or 120 quid. You get a free pie and a pint. You get Dennis Irwin at the start of the match going round the tables. Giving the team having sort of the legends. So you get an experience, a Manchester United experience. You get to see the match with fellow Manchester United fans, and you have some form of connection because there is a former player. So I think this is one of the things that the clubs are looking at, and I told you on I think a few occasions that I was at a presentation event with somebody from private equity who said. These people don't have a sense of humour, by the way. All they're interested in doing is making money. Boy, if you think that gig at Brighton was a hard audience, that's nothing. We are not doing a corporate gig for private equity, I can assure you. But they said, in all seriousness, what they want to do, and they feel that the technology will be there, especially with augmented reality, holograms, and so on. And I've always said, if you go to the ABBA Voyage experience, it is very realistic. Well, why can't you do that in 3D, effectively beam a match? So you have a 70% size pitch. You could have a 10 to 12,000 seater stadium where people think that they're watching the real match. And why do we enjoy going to football? It's not just the football. It's the fact that you're there with all of your mates, in the Arthur Waite, and it's celebrating with them. It's a joint shared experience. Well, we can replicate that in a number of stadiums around the world. So I like the question, Ollie. I think we are not far away from being able to do something similar to that, because it won't be quite half 45 minutes of match. But what you will do is you'll have Manchester United versus Chelsea at 12 o'clock. And then all the audience stream out, and they're replaced by Barcelona versus Villarreal, because beaming it from one country to another is a. And you can actually have, in the one sort of ABBA-style stadium, you could have 4 or 5 matches taking place, and you will have the people moving in and out, just as you do from when you go to a cinema.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
We talked about this about a year ago, the idea of the virtual reality football experience. And I was against it. I took exception to it. I don't, the thin end of the wedge, so on and so forth. But somebody did take me to task not long afterwards and say, well, what's the issue? Why can't Man United fans or Liverpool fans in St. Louis or Lagos or Mumbai, who probably will never get to Old Trafford, maybe once or twice in a lifetime. But why can't they have that experience every match day? And the only answer I could come up with is, well, it would probably be the richer people in St. Louis and Lagos and Mumbai who are able to access it. So it's the same issue. But in general, it doesn't really affect anything that's happening in English football for people around the world to be able to access the game in that sort of way. In the same way that Palace fans all over the world will have gathered around their screens on Saturday morning. You know, there's a Dubai Eagles group, there's a New York Eagles group. They all get together and go to a pub or a hotel and watch the game. So I think in a way that maybe I'm changing my mind about that idea about making the games accessible to foreign fans, which is not to say that's an excuse for not letting them come over here.
Yeah,
but do you know what I mean? But it's going to happen inevitably. The Premier League club. It's Dennis Irwin. I feel sorry for. He's on standby every week, not knowing where he's going to be sent to shake some hands. Andrew Woodman has the next question. I think it's one that's becoming pertinent for a lot of Premier League fans. This one as well. So Andrew Woodman says, my club, Derby County, have operated a Category 1 academy for a number of years, yet for various reasons have not managed to achieve substantial sale prices for players brought through the academy. So my question is, in which club is getting the best financial return from their academy investment, which is getting the worst, and is it worth a championship club like Derby investing in a Category 1 academy when the big clubs pick off the very best academy players for peanuts under EPP? Now, this is in the conflagration that was Palace social media this weekend, Kieran, the WhatsApp groups. One of the things that was raised is that I think it's too early to tell, but we've had a Cat 1 academy for 5-6 years now, and it seems that we're not bringing players of the same quality through that we used to when we had the most basic youth system. That we're not bringing players through that are able to slot into the first team. Nobody was thinking straight about this situation over the weekend, but I think this is a very interesting question, and I think it's an interesting question for a lot of clubs outside the top 6 or 7.
Yes. For people not familiar with EPPP, it stands for the Elite Player Performance Plan. And this was introduced by the Premier League about 15 or 16 years ago. And legacy fans, or whatever we want to call ourselves, we will remember something called the 90-minute rule, which meant that a football club could not recruit a child into their football academy if that child lived more than 90 minutes from sort of a geographical basis. And this was scrapped. And the Premier League effectively said to the clubs in the EFL, this is what we want to impose. And it was a joint agreement at the time. And if you choose that you want to oppose EPPP, we would remind you that solidarity payments, which is a proportion of the Premier League's TV deal that goes to the clubs in the EFL, we would remind you that that's a voluntary gift from the Premier League, which we might choose to withdraw. So it's not a fair negotiation. So therefore, the clubs in the EFL had to fall in with this. And this effectively means that an elite club can now recruit the best academy players from other academy clubs. Yes, there is compensation. Yes, there is financial compensation involved. But that financial compensation is very much on a scale basis, and it's based on how many years you were at the academy, at what age did you leave, and how many matches does that player go on to play at a later point in their career in League One, Championship, Premier League, or whatever. And it has to be said that the rewards for the initial developing club are not great by comparison to transfer fees. So it's very much geared towards the benefit. As far as the clubs which have got the best financial return from their academy investment, I would say by a street, it is Chelsea and Manchester City. If you take a look at Chelsea, Conor Gallagher, Figaro Tomori, Tammy Abrahams, Mason Mount, Billy Gilmore, and many others. So Chelsea are extremely good. Manchester City are very good at doing, Cole Palmer, for example. Perfect example. Phil Foden has gone from the account. So you look at those. James Trafford went, ironically, from Manchester City to Burnley for £20 million and then came back, but they had one of those buyback clauses. So those are the two clubs which have done the best in terms of value for money. Who's done the worst? It's difficult to say, and I don't know when Andrew wrote this question. But I don't think Derby have done too badly, because if you take a look at Derby's accounts for last season, which they published relatively early, that I think they made around about a £10.5 million profit from player sales, the vast majority of which is from former academy players. I think Cashin, they sold for around about £9 million. Rory Delap, they sold him for £1.6 million at the age of 16 to Manchester City. And this is one of my concerns, that the bigger clubs will just take the best of your talent. But when Manchester City sold Rory Delap to Ipswich for $20 million, I believe that Derby County actually had a sell-on clause, so they picked up more money there. And when he then subsequently went from Ipswich to Chelsea at the start of this season for $30 million, they will have got a percentage of Manchester City's percentage in terms of Manchester City sell-on clause. So Derby have not done perhaps as badly as you might consider, Andrew, but the odds are very much stacked against the smaller clubs, because the problems, the elite player performance plan and the level of reward for the developing clubs isn't high enough. At the same time, I use this phrase on many occasions, the commoditization of children and treating children as inventory, as assets, is something which conceptually, with me, doesn't fall particularly easily. But it's the real world in which we're operating.
Well, also, as we've discussed, Kieran, on a number of occasions, the academies, Cat 1 academies in particular, a lot of clubs are not there to make money by selling players and bringing them. They're there to make money through savings on PSR, aren't they? That 90-minute rule, I mean, that was always a strange one, because there were so many anomalies, because clubs would argue, because no one ever specified which mode of transport was to be used to decide how far 90 minutes was. Because, Manchester and Liverpool, we used to say, well, Dublin's 90 minutes away.
Yep.
As simple as that. Southampton would argue that Paris was technically 90 minutes away. Arsenal would argue that if you flew in a helicopter, Newcastle was only 90 minutes away. So it was always a rule that was up for the like most football rules. There's always a bending one, especially if people ask you how to do it. Our penultimate question comes from Chris Eckert. It's a good question, Kieran, but I'm not sure whether you'll be able to find a general answer for this one, because it seems to be quite a specific one season to season. Chris says, what are the total medical costs for a Premier League team of maintaining a healthy squad over a year? And what contractual relationships do clubs have with surgeons and hospitals to be able to get a rapid turnaround when a player is injured? And I'm assuming here, Chris and Kieran, that most clubs in the Premier League and probably the Championship would be getting private medical treatment and private surgery, I'm guessing, would they not?
Yes. I spoke to the secret doctor.
Oh, very good. How long did you have to wait for an appointment?
Goodness. What, wasn't your Dr. Bones, by the way?
It wasn't Dr. Bones. Okay.
Dr. Bones.
Okay.
And the answer, well, first of all, the secret doctor, who is clearly a listener to the show, said, Kieran, it depends, which I like. This is a sign. That is the code word that you're a listener to the price of football. And the answer was, it very much depends upon the league in which you're in. And if you move from, say, League One to the Championship, you might go from... There's an expectation from players that if we're now a Championship club, or we've gone from the Championship to the Premier League, we expect to be seen by Harley Street doctors. And Harley Street doctors aren't on the NHS.
Yeah.
So there is pressure on clubs. And also... this is quite often be the case that there can be pressure put on clubs by either the player or the player's representative to use their guy.
Yeah.
So when somebody it has control over your future through their medical skills. Footballers are very superstitious. So if this is the knee guy, if this is the ankle guy, or the ankle, the female surgeon or male surgeon, whoever it's going to be, they can get reputations in exactly the same way they feel as the likes of our good friend Nick DeMarco does in the legal field. And therefore this allows these people to charge accordingly. But I spoke to somebody at I think it was League One level. They said they probably budget for around about 350 grand, 400 grand of medical costs a year. They'll also be paying for medical supplements, for want of a better phrase, bits and pieces to keep the players fit and healthy. And that's before you look at sort of the club internal costs. So you might have how many physios are you going to have? For a big club like Chelsea, Manchester United, you might have 20 or 30 physios. You'll have a club doctor, a head of medical. The club doctors, they could be on 250, 300 grand a year each.
Wow, okay.
Because they have to be really good.
Yeah, of course.
And also, I've always said, if somebody's going to study medicine for 5 years and then become a junior doctor, wherever it is, and to learn their trade, I'm very pro doctor myself. So yes, it is a substantial cost, and at the same time, it's an investment, and you always look at things from a preventative point of view. So again, the guidance that the doctors can now use with the sports science people, if they understand each other's roles, can mean that you're not overloading players and therefore reducing the chances of injury and so on. And the financial rewards on the back of that for the club in terms of winning cup competitions, qualifying for Europe and so on, could be substantial.
I understand as well, Kieran, that you quite often get, I've heard this from several people at clubs, is that a Dutch player, for example, or an Italian player will always, not always, but will quite often ask to be treated back in their home country. Now, whether that's for a private insurance reason, I don't know, or whether it's because they want to get home and be amongst their own culture while they're recuperating, I don't know. But it seems that there is that surgery in particular they want to have done some real. I'm not sure if we've mentioned Dr. Bones properly, Kieran, since I've been back on the pod, but my admiration and respect for the NHS was always at a huge level because of what they did for Ali, but it's higher than it's ever been. The level of treatment I'm still getting now, both physically and psychologically, because apparently I come under major trauma, you see. So I tick some special list. So I had a long psychological report last week from this very nice NHS psychologist who at the end said, is there anything else we could discuss? I said, well, there's some childhood issues. And she went, no, sincere. So, incredible service that you receive from the NHS. I've got nothing but respect for them. Dr. Bones, God love him, I'd been in hospital about half an hour. They just immobilised me because they didn't know the full extent of the issues. I was in pain of a type I've never met before. And Dr. Bones, God love him, is a fan of the pod and started asking me questions about various about how was it that Chelsea were getting away, and I go, they're not getting away with it. They're not doing anything wrong technically. But I said I'll mention you. He said, perhaps best not mention me by so he's been Dr. Bones ever since. God love him. That's an interesting question. That £400,000 a year. That's a big fee that they bargain. But I mean, you're talking about, again, using that word asset, but you're talking about very, very precious assets, aren't you? Really, and
absolutely
looking after their health should be their primary object rather than looking after their value.
Yes,
which is what it is, unfortunately, for a lot of time. Our last question comes from Andrew Lee, and if there's another way other than saying this might be a stupid question of getting my attention, it's when you say something along the lines of, picture this. So this is how Andrew Lee starts his question. Picture this. I show up to a match with two objectives. First of all, bagging 3 points. And secondly, supporting my club's PSR efforts as an avid listener of your podcast. I've got £100 to spend on anything in or around the stadium. What is the single best purchase to maximise pure profit for the club? I'm game for anything, even buying 75 pens or polishing off 25 pies. Thoughts? So I think this is a really good question. We've had so many questions about what you can do to the club to maximise PSR, most of which involve buying 5 million lottery tickets. But this is a great question. I mean, this is a sort of question when it comes to the environment. People say, "What can I do? What can I do at a lower level? I want to help save the planet." So, what can you do to help save your club?
Okay, the best thing to do, Andrew, is to find a friend or a neighbour or a nephew or a niece or a son or a daughter and buy them a couple of tickets and take them to a match. Because that money will go straight through. The club will get effectively 100%, apart from the VAT element. And also, there potentially is that you are seeding the future, especially if that is a young person, because you know from your first experience of going to Selhurst Park, and I'm exactly the same, is that you were captured by the event, and that means that you are now a lifelong consumer of the club that you love. Whereas if you go and buy them a shirt, Nike or Adidas or Puma or Castor, they're going to take a share of it. The retailer is going to take a share of it, and the club gets relatively little of a proportion. So gifting a ticket, buying a ticket, bringing along somebody, especially somebody young, to make them a football fan, is the biggest investment that you can make as an individual in terms of football. My old man didn't like football, and I remember when I moved to Brighton, which was 1973, 1974. One of the neighbours, John, and I still remember John said, "Do you want to go watch Brighton play?" And I go, "Oh yes, please, Mister," because it was too far away for me to go. Because I lived in one of the poorer ends of Brighton, which was quite a long way. Because Brighton used to play at the Goldstone, which was in Hove, and my mum and dad weren't wealthy, so. And that was it, and here I am, 51, 52 years later, still doing the same nonsense.
A twisted new season of The Traitors is finally here.
What did I get myself into?
The prize, $250,000.
I'm gonna lie and cheat and do whatever I have to do to win. If you're gonna come for me, I'll finish you.
Shame on you!
I'm out for blood. It is like a firing squad. Boom, 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 boom.
Let the games begin. Emmy Award winner, The Traitors. New episode streaming Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Only on Peacock.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Yeah, you say I was captured by the event when I first went. Around 2 o'clock last Saturday, it felt like fucking Stockholm Syndrome, basically. The man who took me to my first Palace game is still alive, God love him, at the age of 96. And I was trying to think of the appropriate... Well, obviously, the end of May last year, I couldn't thank him enough. But you make a very good point. I mean, there will be kids in Macclesfield or in Cheshire for who that was their first ever game on Saturday, and they're going to be Macclesfield fans for the rest of their life. But I suppose the difficulty is where the sort of cut-off point, because if you're a fan of a Premier League club, you're not going to be able to get tickets for a couple of kids to come. But at the same time, that Premier League club doesn't need your help buying 75 pens for their PSR situation. So somewhere along the line, probably halfway up the Championship, is where you can't get tickets anymore. But I mean, that's the best advice. Take some people to a football game, their first one. Start with a non-league,
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the club is. You're investing in football.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everyone who has joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join the club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening, and invite to our monthly Q&A sessions, Macclesfield free episodes, bonus episodes and more, go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy one of our books or even a Price of Football t-shirt, you can find all the details on that same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on Thursday with our news podcast. There's already some big stories to discuss this week. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you to everybody who is in the Price of Football Club. We really appreciate your support, and we'll be having one of our special shows with you in the next week or two as well.
We shall.
There's a variety of ways that you can support the pod, and we've seen in recent weeks Gary Lineker getting $10 million to do a show in during the World Cup, and we've seen Gary Neville's The Overlap being acquired by Global for a huge sum. We're one of the independents, and we quite like being independent. We're stroppily independent in sort of the old fanzine mentality, but your support really allows us to stay independent as well. There is a variety of ways in which you can support the show, however, and which don't cost you any money. It'll just take you 30 seconds. Doesn't matter what you write. So you could even say you would rather have the show presented. Just give us a written review. You'd have the show presented by DeForest Kelly, who played the part of Bones in Star Trek, and David Attenborough, because if anybody started watching this new David Attenborough show about the wildlife of London,
wow!
And both myself and Kevin are London boys, and Kevin is still there, of course. London's a great city. For all of those people who say don't go and visit London, you're completely bonkers. Anybody that goes around saying that I go to London at least 2 or 3 times a month for work, basically. London's a great city. The wildlife of London is great as well. So, and David Attenborough, God love him.
I mean, that bit where the sea. I mean, you know my views on seagulls anyway, but where that bit where the seagull was trying to drown the penguin. Not a penguin, the pigeon. I mean, a penguin might win that fight. The seagull was trying to drown the pigeon, and then the other pigeons took no notice. And the moorhens jumped in and beat the shit out of the seagull, which obviously went down very well in my house. We are, you are quite right. We are stroppily independent, but if Global are listening, we could downgrade that to independent. We'll happily drop stroppily if that's a discussion in the takeover bit. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.